Hi everybody, welcome to my video on what the very first thing you should do if your child is diagnosed with cluttering. And I'll just say the very first thing that you should do when your child is diagnosed with cluttering is you should go and enroll in speech therapy. And I'll get into the details of why that's so important. But and you're probably thinking, well, no, it's my child that has the speech problem. My speech is fine, but I'll explain that. But before I do, when I first started learning about cluttering and I made the Yahoo cluttering group, then and that was like the big online resource for cluttering for like 2 or 3 years. But one of the things that really surprised me, I thought I was making a group so that I could connect with other clutters and talk about techniques and stuff like that. But what really surprised me is there weren't very many clutters that joined the group. There were the biggest group by far, or the biggest percentage by far of people looking for resources for cluttering are parents of clutters. Not the clutters themselves. So I think I'm kind of rare in that I'm talking about it. I'm fascinated with it. I want to come up with techniques and stuff like that, because most of the people that are trying to do that aren't people like me. They're people like my parents. So anyway. Anyway, that surprised me, and I thought I was going to get a lot of questions like, oh well, what should I do in this situation? How do I get people to understand me better? But the biggest question about cluttering is like I said, my child has just been diagnosed with cluttering. What do I do? What are the resources? How can I help? And like I said, the very best thing that you can do is enroll in speech therapy. And speech therapy is expensive, especially in the U.S. Basically, you can get a new iPhone every month and a half, or you can do speech therapy. Hopefully your insurance covers you a little bit, and then you could either get a new iPhone every 3 to 6 months, or enroll in speech therapy. So the cost is high, and it's really hard. Sometimes, and especially with cluttering, it's really hard to see if it's actually making a difference or helping or not. And so I guess my suggestion, like literally, is just for like really rich people. For regular people, if your child's in speech therapy, then figure out all of talk to the speech therapist, ask for all of the techniques and things that they're training your child, and then you do them too. Look up YouTube videos on how to do clearer speech, and start doing that, and spend a lot of time working on your own speech. So a lot of this suggestion is based on the parenting method called Parenting with Love and Logic, and I don't have any kids, but I really liked the philosophy of Parenting with Love and Logic, and it works. It works not just with kids, but with pretty much any way that you're training people, or trying to encourage people, or just like even helping with your friends. It's a great philosophy, and kind of the core of Parenting with Love and Logic is that you don't tell your kids what to do. You do the stuff yourself, and then your kids just kind of naturally follow you. And so that's and one of the biggest things is that clutters don't know that they're cluttering. I think 26 before I realized that my speech was any different than anyone else's, and if only a couple things had gone a little bit differently, I might not have realized that my speech was any different than anyone else's until I was like 40. So there's there are lots and lots of people that clutter that have no idea that they clutter, and then even though your speech is much better than your child's speech, you actually might be like I was and be a clutterer yourself and not actually realize it. So that's one benefit but that's probably only like 5% of the people. But the interesting thing about cluttering is that the cluttering disfluencies are disfluencies that exist in every single person. So you're actually cluttering, um, even though like your speech is cluttered, just like normal. Everyone's normal speech is cluttered, except for like really good speakers like Bill Clinton, or like pretty much all of the U.S. presidents have been really great public speakers, and those folks probably only clutter like once every month, but the rest of us and everyone else has cluttered speech. Especially when non-clutters get nervous, then their speech turns more and more into cluttered speech, and so that's why it's a huge misconception that clutters are just nervous. We're not any more nervous than anyone else. The way it's just the way that we speak sounds to other people like, hey, when I speak like that, then I'm nervous. So Joseph must be nervous. I'm not nervous. I get nervous in like regular nervousness situations, but to the untrained ear, I sound a lot more nervous than I actually am. And so anyway, back to the modeling. So I probably should give an example of an example that they give is trying to get your kid to eat their vegetables, and the wrong way, the way everyone does it, is say, hey kid, eat your vegetables, and then the kid's like, no, and then it's just really hard to get your child to eat their vegetables. And so the parenting with love and logic method is that you start talking about the meal before and say, oh, we're going to have pizza tonight, but then we're having vegetables also, and I'm really excited for my vegetables. And then you have your pizza and your vegetables, and you're like, oh, this pizza's good, and oh, these vegetables, and you just over exaggerate how excited you are for the vegetables. Like, oh, I love broccoli. Broccoli is so delicious. And then it's really interesting because this it sounds like the technique is modeled toward like 2-year-olds, and it works really well with 2-year-olds, but it actually works really well with everyone else. Like even if you're with a group of adult friends and you start talking about how excited you are about vegetables, and you'll be able to see people just start being like, oh, well yeah, I like vegetables too. I'm excited about vegetables too. If you're the one that goes out and initiates the excitement for the vegetables. So, and then kind of miraculously, instead of you never actually have to tell your child, hey, eat your vegetables, because then they start trying to act like you, trying to be excited about the vegetables, and then they realize, oh, vegetables aren't actually that bad. I'm still not sure what mom and dad are so excited about, these things that are way worse than pizza, but I feel kind of excited for them. And so anyway, that's parenting with love and logic in a 2-minute explanation. But the exact same thing with speech. Most people are really scared about working on their speech, and so you're probably scared about working on your speech, and then your child, who, if they're a clutterer, they don't realize that their speech is wrong, or anything, or that they have problems with their speech, or that there's anything wrong with their speech. Your child doesn't realize that, and it's kind of like you telling your child, hey, eat your vegetables, to get them to work on their speech and practice cluttering, or practice improving their cluttering. And so that's why you should be doing speech therapies. You should be looking at YouTube videos and trying to fix your own speech. And because then, if your child sees you watching a YouTube video and then practicing, oh, this is how I say my R's and my L's better. This is how I speak without saying and you practicing that, then they're going to get more excited for their therapy. And if you take their book and you study their book and you do their practice things themselves, even though your child's probably young and it's probably it's probably pretty basic, but you can improve your speech too. It doesn't just have to be an act. It's a huge benefit for you improving your own speech. And I think I had another point with that. Oh, so there's lots of techniques that I'll get into with future videos. Like, one of the best things that worked for me is coming up with an outline, like thinking, okay, I want to tell a story about what I am doing today, and then break it into three different sections. So say, oh well, there's this, and then as I'm talking, then go through those three things. And this thing of outlining, I think most people normally do that when they're telling any kind of story, is immediately, okay, tell an outline, start from the morning and go to the afternoon, start from this side of the room and then go to this side of the room as you're describing the story, start from oldest to youngest, start from I was really excited, like a emotional thing, and I'll get into that technique in the future. But that's that's something that everyone can practice, and you can practice with your child. And you can say, oh hey, well, let's tell a story. I'm going to tell a story first, and I am going to tell a story about what I did yesterday. But before I tell the story, I'm going to write down point number one, this happened in the morning. Point number two, this happened in the afternoon. Point number three, this happened in the evening. And then over exaggeratedly tell your story using the bullet point, and then even though you can remember three things, exaggeratedly look and say, okay, number one, in the morning, what did I do in the morning? Just as a really good model for your child to use that same model. And it seems really weird, but I just it's something that everybody else got and normally does, is this outline in speaking. But when I started speaking, it was just all my thoughts going on, and I would just start saying whatever my thoughts were, and that if you do that, then you're not going to have fluid speech at all, because there's no organization. You're talking about, okay, well, this in the morning, this in the afternoon, this in the evening, and so that's why outlining helps so much. So that's a method. It's free. You don't have to go to speech therapy. You're probably doing it anyways. You're talking with your child, but you can do that. And I really recommend that you at least go to one speech therapy session yourself. It's expensive. I think between somebody mentioned $65 for a copay. I don't know what the current prices are. I think one of the best speech therapists I went to cost $200 an hour, and I'm sure there's a lot more that are a little bit cheaper and a lot more expensive. But even though it's expensive, and even though you're going to go there and say, hey, well, I don't think I have any speech problems, but I want you to help me, I watched this YouTube video. Joseph Dewey told me to come and sign up for speech therapy and have you improve my speech. But my son's the one with the problem, not me. So the cool thing about speech therapy is speech therapists work. My friend Shannon talked about how it's kind of exhausting being a speech therapist, because you have to be a very, very good model for your speech, or for speech yourself, and so you have to do everything perfect. And so the cool thing about speech therapists is that they can help you improve your speech, even if your speech is awesome already. You can kind of actually use them as a speech coach. I think everyone wants to be better at public speaking, even though everyone is really scared of public speaking. Everyone wants to be better at public speaking. And so, like, even if your speech is awesome, then you can still go to speech therapy and get a ton of benefit out of it. I guess you could also hire a voice coach. There's a lot of stuff with singing, like training yourself for singing, and you can find people to do singing tutoring and voice tutoring much cheaper than speech language pathologists. And the cool thing about that is that then your child will see you improving your voice, improving your singing, and you might even learn some techniques that they can learn too. And the biggest thing is that you're modeling getting excited about improving your speech and then improving it. Oh, and I think I mentioned this already, because clutterers don't realize that they're cluttering, and so it's extremely hard to motivate a clutterer to stop cluttering. Like one of the most famous things that I read is that clutterers, the biggest thing that bothers clutterers, and this was the same way for me. The biggest thing that bothers clutterers isn't their speech. The biggest thing that bothers clutterers is other people not being able to understand their speech. So it's really hard to motivate clutterers, and then modeling and you getting excited about your own speech, and going through that is just a natural way of getting your child to get excited about it. And then one other idea for cheaper speech therapy is, you probably, in your circle of friends, you probably know one or two or maybe even three speech therapists, like, personally, and they probably don't specialize in cluttering, but you can probably talk to them and bum off free advice, saying, "Hey, you're a speech therapist," from my friends that are speech therapists, they kind of get annoyed by that, so, like, bake them cookies or something. I think in my circle of friends, at least on Facebook, I think, like, outside of cluttering, outside of the speech therapists that I've met in cluttering, I probably have about, like, 8 friends that are speech therapists, and I think that speech therapists are cool. I have, even before I found out about cluttering, But anyway, they're really cool people. So that's a way. That's another cheap way, is getting their advice on stuff. But don't. If you get their advice for more than a half an hour or an hour, you should probably pay them $200. So keep it to, like, 2 questions a month. But they're a great they're a great resource, and they and my friends that are speech therapists have helped me a lot. So anyway, that's my video. Please go and improve your speech yourself, and that will help you. But more importantly, it will help your child, and the biggest thing that will do is improve your child's motivation. So thanks very much. Thanks for watching my video.